Hi, I'm odeean, and today I've got Toyworld BII, their version of a classic style Bumblebee. You can see he's a little bit super deformed. Now, he doesn't ship packed in vehicle mode, he ships in robot mode, but vehicle mode's kind of his strong point, so I just wanted to show that off first. It's really nice and cute. It fits right in the palm of my hand, and at first glance, you really wouldn't think that this turns into a robot, which is about the same size as a Classics, Transformers Hasbro Classics Bumblebee. But in robot mode, he is about that size and quite a bit smaller in car mode. Here's B in between two variants of the Classics Bumblebee mold. I think this is Reveal the Shell, and this is the original. You can tell by the rub sticker on top. I've bought this Classics mold so many times, must be at least a dozen times by now, just because I really like this toy. I've never reviewed it because it's old and everyone's got it, but this is one of my favorite Classics toys, and I just think it looks really good as Bumblebee. So there's never been a huge hole for me to fill with other Bumblebees, but along the way I have picked up a few, just trying to get one that looks a little bit more like the cartoon. And B definitely does look a lot more like the cartoon, and so much so it's, as far as some people are concerned, to its detriment, because it does have that deformed look. So even though it's about the same scale as a Classics toy, it looks like it's right off the show, not realistic really in any way. A Volkswagen Beetle does not look like that. I've seen them in person, and this is just really kind of chibi compared to the real thing. Now, we're going to be getting a Masterpiece, which is supposed to be exactly like a real version of a Beetle. So I guess that's going to be the best version when that comes out, because I've seen pictures of both modes and it looks fantastic. But at the moment, I think this is one of my favourite, at least vehicle mode Bumblebees. Another really great vehicle mode Bumblebee that I do like quite a bit is the Art Feather Bumblebee. So here's Art Feather. I think I applied these stickers. I'm not sure if they came in the box, I can't remember. But I really do like the Art Feather Bumblebee, but it's got a few issues. My one doesn't roll. You can see that it just locks up. The tolerances kind of grab the rubber sections, and it can't move backwards and forwards. So it stops it from being a fantastic toy. But it does definitely look pretty nice on the shelf. I would have liked if B here had more of this painted plastic and less of the Toyworld matte that Toyworld so frequently use, because that's kind of what's standing in between him being a really beautiful Bumblebee and just a cheap toy. My wife actually saw this as soon as it came out of the mail, and she said, "Look at that! That's cheap. Is that like a real Transformer?" And you know, I have to admit that if you're not familiar with Toyworld stuff, it does look a little bit cheap. The plastic, I like it for its durability and in evenness, but at first glance, that kind of matteness does make it look a little bit cheap. This is B back into robot mode, how he ships, and looking at his face, at first glance, you would be forgiven for thinking it is a Classics Bumblebee face. But it isn't. When I do a comparison later on, you'll see that it's fully its own thing. They've just kind of taken cues from that. I really prefer it if they would have just gone with a straight-out G1 Bumblebee like the Masterpiece is going to have. And if there's one thing with this figure that I'm not pleased with, it is the face. Like, it's a good face. It's even a good Classics Bumblebee face. It's just a little bit too removed from the cartoon. B has those huge car hood feet that Bumblebee is supposed to have. He really looks like it. He actually looks a lot like you would imagine the G1 toy being, if it just got a little bit bigger and a bit of articulation in the knees and elbows and stuff. It's pretty good. So the knees, if you listen to this, have ratchets. So he's really ratcheted. Even the elbows, like if I better just focus back on him here, the elbows are actually ratcheted. Now, it is just a ball joint in the shoulder up here, and they are just ball joints in the hips, and this weird swivel for the ankle tilt. But I was surprised at the ratchets being present in a deluxe class figure. Very seldom do we ever see ratchets going on with a figure this size, so it's pretty cool. But kind of where he needs it the most, in the backwards ankle tilt, he doesn't have it, and that is a bit of a weakness. He does hold his weight okay, but you can see with a little bit of vibration, it will tilt back like that. What he loses in backwards mobility, like backwards stability, you can kind of make up for it just by angling his feet like that, and then it kind of stops it from falling back. Whoop, a bit, stops it from falling back a bit. B comes with this nice little pistol, and it's got a very simple transformation. It just bends over like that and forms the exhaust. So actually the handle is the exhaust of the car mode. So I think the gun looks pretty good, and it does stow very securely underneath the car at the back for the vehicle mode, so no chance of losing it. And you can see on the chest there how nice and crisp the paintwork is. So a lot of criticism kind of goes to this guy for having blue windows, but you can't criticize them for the quality of work. It's done very well, just not 100% sure if blue was the best choice. I would have liked it to be see-through, but that really wasn't possible with the choices of materials and just the bits all inside. So it really had to be blue or black, and I'm not sure blue or black. I think I would have preferred black, but I'm not game enough to paint it black to see how it is, and I don't really want to buy a second. I'm going to be curious to see how much of the transformation that this guy has is borrowed for the Masterpiece figure, because it seems like the way this backpack and the internal transformation works, it's probably the best way to do it, and I would be surprised if none of that translates over into the Masterpiece. I would bet you that Hisui or whoever it was that did the Masterpiece has this toy. Here's a comparison with the Classics Bumblebee in robot mode. As I said, I always liked this toy, but when you put him side by side with B, his shortcomings do really become apparent. So much of the shell of Classics Bumblebee you can see just here sitting on the forearms in robot mode, these panels lifted up over the shins, and a very large backpack, like much larger than the backpack that's on B. And for its day, it was a fantastic toy, but you know, if they had redone that in more modern times, I think that they could have managed to get rid of a lot of that kibble, but he still stands up fantastically. Looking more closely at the faces, you can see the influence that's gone from the Classics Bumblebee into B, and it's definitely there. I mean, they've gone with those lines across the forehead, the same shape of the area around the face, like the sideburns, the chin. It is very derivative of the Classics, and it's a shame, because I think that they could have done a little bit more, you know. And even the way that they've got the smoothness on this guy's cheeks, it's not quite as good as the way that the lines are made on the Classics toy. I know there's like fourth party upgrades for B and Classics Bumblebee, a head pack. I might end up buying that. Here's the Art Feather Bumblebee in comparison to B, and the first thing I want to point out is that Art Feather Bumblebee is actually taller than Classics Bumblebee. So if I stand him up straight, he's still a little bit taller than B. Putting him off to the side, here's the Classics right next to him. So Art Feather is a little bit taller. I really like some of the features on the Art Feather Bumblebee. I do like the chrome. I don't think it suits Bumblebee that much, but it's done well. I like the fact that they've got these little stickers on the chrome. Both figures have some pretty cool detailing over the headlights. So you can see both have like a chromed section, or silver at least. This is chrome, this is silver, with plastic, clear plastic over the top. I think that B does it a little bit better than the Art Feather Bumblebee in that circumstance. As far as the faces go, I think that the face on Art Feather Bumblebee, although it is very similar to Classics, it does look really good. It's got no chin, and the silver is done so nicely. So, you know, I don't know, should I mix and match and put this head over on B? The plastic colour doesn't really match, but then again, the plastic colour on Art Feather Bumblebee's head doesn't match his body either. They went for the weird kind of Generations colour instead of the yellow that the rest of the panels are. So, I don't know. I need to get that pack. It's only about $20 for 3 extra heads. So, I think that's definitely something I need to look into. Both figures also have a pretty cool gun. I do like Bee's gun. I think it is 100% appropriate for him, but I do like Art Feather Bumblebee's gun. I think that's really good for him. And it is interchangeable. They're both 5mm pegs. So if I wanted to use the Art Feather Bumblebee gun over here, I should be able to, and I can. Just plug it in here, those elbow ratchets. So he's able to wield virtually any gun that you've got. Compared to War for Cybertron Bumblebee, he is very short. I like my War for Cybertron Bumblebee. I think he's a good Cybertronian mode Bumblebee, but they do look very different. Look at that. My last comparison will be with my Action Master Bumblebee. I do have a G1 Bumblebee. I just don't know where he is at the moment, and he's not such a great toy anyway. Let's get to the transformation. So grab the gun, bend this over. That's the exhaust pipe. Grab the Bee figure, turn him around, open these doors, and fold up the panels. Now, out of the whole toy, these panels are the #1 worst part. They are designed very poorly and have a tendency to pop off. They should have had a pin. If there was a pin through that joint there, it would have been fantastic. The toy would have been virtually flawless. But as it is, while I'm transforming this, this is going to constantly happen, and it wears the toy out. A little bit annoying. Grab these shoulders and rotate this around like that to get it within the hole where the wheel goes. You just want it to be kind of contained like this. Pop the head unit up so that this can separate, and we want to bend that down a little. You can see that there's two halves here. These need to separate out like this, so you can see the whole thing's kind of coming apart. Maybe now is a good time to bend out the little mirrors here, and then if you can get your finger in here, flip up this panel. Then bend this unit that holds the head, like the neck. You want to get that inside like this, just between all that stuff. And here's where it gets a little bit tricky. We need to rotate this around on a ball joint, but there isn't really clearance. As you turn it, you're going to have to move things in and out of the way, and if you're unlucky enough to pop it off, it can be a little bit troublesome to get back on again. So it's better to flex some other part than it is to put force on that ball joint, because once the ball joint comes off, it's a nuisance to get back on. But you can see I've just done it there, so it's definitely possible. The next thing is to fold the foot down like this, and the leg is going to snap into position. Now, I'm trying to do it without breaking that window off, but you'll see when I get to the right spot, you'll see it there, snapped into position, and then you can just bend it up like this. Now, the two halves, they should be the same. They're going to peg together like so, and then you can flip the wheels out. If you've done it right, that will create room for the wheels to flip out. If you haven't done it right, then I don't think the wheels are going to work. This is what we've got so far. So clearly, this front windshield is going to have to turn around a little, but again, we've got a bit of conflict going, so you want to avoid bumping into stuff. It's better to try and get here we go. Problems beginning. This becomes a really huge pain in the ass as we go, and it may even make it hard for me to show on camera because it always happens. Very annoying. Anyway, let's try that again. You've got to get these side windows on the outside of this little flap, and that creates a problem in and of itself because it's hard to hold them both at the same time. I've had a lot of practice, so I just managed to do it, but the first time you do that, it's quite difficult. Now, where you see the seams, the next thing you're going to need to do is get them tabbed into each other. Make sure both sides are tabbed in, and if you're careful at this point, you can kind of get the shell all lined up. You can see there's more tabs at the back here, and just gently get this in. You don't want to untab the front because that's harder to line up. So if you've got it all right, there, the shell of the car is done, and all we've got left now are the arms underneath to stow away neatly. On both sides of the arms, you can see these little tabs that are supposed to go together when they meet. So we want to work these in. Now, nothing too complex. They fit in there quite easily. You might have to move it up and down a little bit, but if you see here, there's 2 bumps to kind of give you the rough location. So what I'm going to do is tab them together sticking up. I think that's the easier way to go about it, and then fold them back down afterwards. And I forgot to put the exhaust pipe in. So there was a little peg in here for the exhaust pipe. I should have done it a few steps back, so I'm going to do that off camera. That's how it should look in the end. Now, some of his gaps you might have to play with just to spread them out evenly over the whole figure. But it's pretty solid. Like it's a pretty solid transformation. My final thoughts. I'm very glad that I picked this up. I didn't want to buy it at full price, but ever since the news of Masterpiece Bumblebee came out, these have periodically been showing up for a good deal. I can't remember exactly what I paid, but I'm pretty sure that the total price from eBay to my hand was something like $50 with the shipping. So that is pretty good for a third-party figure. I'm happy with it. I know that ultimately it's probably going to be superseded by the Masterpiece. I do have 2 Masterpieces on order, but you know, it's good now, and that Masterpiece is some time off. B does come from my favorite third-party toy company, Toyworld. I really like their stuff, and that's one of the reasons that I picked him up. I wanted to get everything that Toyworld have released, because one by one I've been getting them and finding them so good that I've started to go back now and get some of the stuff that I missed. I also have I think, what do they call it? Brainwave. I'll review him shortly. But yeah, I'm very happy with it. So if you can't wait to get a Masterpiece Bumblebee, then probably now is a pretty good time to pick up Toyworld's B. I'm Odeean. Thank you for watching.